Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to #Trust the Process, where we talk all about determination, resilience, and perseverance. If you're enjoying these interviews, drop a like on the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel, as there's loads more content coming up. Today, I'm joined by the writer and director, Naomi Soneye-Thomas. Naomi and I did a really great Natter with Nilan video earlier, so make sure you check that out. Naomi, thank you very much for joining me again on my channel.
Nice to be here again. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Welcome to #Trust the Process, where we talk all about determination, resilience, and perseverance. You've been on quite a journey to become a writer and director. Has there been a time in your career where you've felt like giving up?
Yeah, I think there's regularly times. I can't think of a specific moment where something like big happened and I just thought, oh, I can't do it anymore. But I think in general, being in a creative industry, there's no clear path into it. So you don't really know when you're making the right move and when you're not making the right move. And there's a lot of rejection. So I'm just like constantly applying for things and not hearing back, or you just don't get onto the thing that you want to get onto, or you don't get the job. And I think sometimes having so many knockbacks can make you feel like, have I made the right decision? Should I have gone into a different field? It can be quite hard freelancing, like financially. That's a big, that can be a big challenge. You can have months where you haven't really brought in any income, and you have months that are really good, and you're just like on a constant roller coaster. And definitely on the down months, you think, wow, I should definitely have gone into some other field where I could be on a regular salary and not have to worry about all those kind of issues that come alongside with that. So I think, yeah, I think it's a regular battle where you think maybe I should go off and do something else. But I saw someone, it's a bit cheesy, but I saw someone on Twitter maybe post that you haven't come this far just to come this far. And I was like, that's quite a good quote, because I have been like doing all of this work, and to quit now when I feel like quite close to getting to a position that I'd be happy to be in, would just feel like I've wasted pretty much all of my 20s. Having said that, I think spoke to someone recently, and she said that she gravitates towards things that bring her joy. So if it got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm just really not enjoying this anymore, and I'm feeling down more times than I'm feeling up, I think there'd be nothing. I don't think it would be a failure for me to say, okay, maybe I do just need to go maybe and do a job that's still within the arts, but not as a writer director. And I think sometimes for some people that is a sensible decision to make. But for me, I think if I was to give up now, it would, for me personally, I'd feel like there's just so much more that I want to do, so much more that I want to say. And it would just feel premature to leave the industry.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It can be hard. It can be hard when you're stuck in that mind of sort of two places where you're entertaining, two paths essentially. I was going to ask, why didn't you give up? What stopped you? What kept you going in the route that you was on to lead you to where you are now?
I did law before, so like I did a law degree, so I've seen like the path that I could have gone on, which would have been a lot more straightforward than what I've chosen to do. But I couldn't find an area of law that really, really interested me, and I felt that there was some part of me that was unfulfilled, I suppose, by not having an outlet for the creative energy that I have within me. And I think for me, having seen, I don't know, I feel like sometimes there's this sort of pressure on you as a child or grandchild of an immigrant, where you're like, oh, they came and they made all these sacrifices, and if I haven't made it by a certain age, then their sacrifices have completely gone to waste, essentially. And I think there can be this additional pressure. But sometimes I feel that maybe the sacrifices that they made have given me the privilege of having choice, and not necessarily just having to go into any job, even if it doesn't fulfill me and it doesn't make me happy. That's some of the decisions that they had to make. But now that they've made their decisions, maybe I now have a bit of time and a bit of just a bit of a grace period where I can sort of find myself. And for me, I would feel like if I just went and did anything that didn't fulfill me, maybe that's more of a waste of their sacrifice. Maybe that's not what they wanted. Maybe they came here not just so I could get a good job, but also so I could have personal freedom. So it's sort of things that sort of tussle with back and forth. But ultimately it is, I just can't really imagine myself going in and going back into law, going back into doing a job that doesn't really fulfill me. I think it does just come down to personal fulfillment and what's bringing me that joy at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same, in the sense that I spent a lot of time trying to get into this industry, and then I suddenly found myself in this industry and progressing. And despite how difficult things get, and despite certain people not wanting you around, you do have to look at it and go, I've done what loads of people in my community would love to do, but are unable to, or haven't been able to do so yet. It would be a massive waste if I was to not necessarily throw it away, but just give in to doing what is easy, which is to walk away from a difficult situation. And I always think sticking by your gut instinct and seeing something through, and sometimes sticking it to people who have made it clear that they don't want you around, it can be the best thing for you. And it can be very character building and very, like, it can be the best decision you make, as long as it doesn't negatively impact your mental health to the point where you're doing the thing that you want to do, but you are hating your life. I think making that distinction and making that sort of decision is very, very important, but only you can make that. And I think you're going to have a lot of people around you advising you one way or the other. I think you do have to take it all in, but then you have to make the ultimate decision of where you see your sort of career heading.
Yeah, I think at one point I was having discussions. It's like, maybe I should do a grad scheme for a couple of years and then leave and then do what I really want to do. But I suppose that's it's like, can I convince someone that I will stick with this job and that this is my passion? It's quite hard to do when you're not really that into it. And then also it's kind of assuming that you do have that time. And I think, I don't know, it's a bit morbid, but I don't really know, like, necessarily that I do have, like, however much time on this planet to start doing things that I don't want to do and then move on to the thing that I really want to do. Like, I've been given the benefit of having the time now to do it. So if I'm delaying it, I think you end up at a point where it's really hard to switch. And I think you get used to the lifestyle. I think, you get into the grad scheme and then you're like, okay, I'll do it for 4 years. But then whilst you're there, you get a mortgage. And then you're like, okay, I can't quit because I need to pay my mortgage. And then maybe you have a few kids and you're like, okay, I'm going to send them to a really good private school. And now I really can't leave the job because, do you know what I mean? You get sucked in more and more and more into that lifestyle. And I think it is, to do that clean break, I think it's easier to do it now rather than when I'm 7 years into a different career.
100%. Yeah. And of course, throughout the last year, I think people, especially at the very start of their creative careers, would have found lockdown incredibly difficult. I saw online for the majority of last year so many people wanting to be a part of the film industry, the TV industry, and the creative industry in general. And I don't know if you remember, but at the start they were basically being told, find another path. Like, this isn't viable for you because production can't continue. Now, obviously, after I think 3 or 4 months, when we got to the summer, production did continue, which was great. And despite lockdown 2 and 3, production carried on, and it hasn't been locked down since, which is great. But I do think about the opportunities that young people have and how the landscape has changed. And hopefully, once all the restrictions have been lifted, things can go back to a normal before COVID, which means that those people looking for those types of opportunities will be able to do that. But on a mental health level, I think a lot of people will feel quite demoralized and quite, that they'll be feeling like not necessarily that their chance is gone, but their chance of doing what they want to do is decreasing, what advice would you have for people that feel like they want to give up on their creative ambitions because of the world that we're in right now?
Yeah, I remember that time when they were telling us all to go and retrain, and I don't know. I think for some reason the role of the artist isn't really valued in our society, and like by artists I mean any kind of art, like filmmaking, writing, physically painting or whatever. But it is such an important career. It's like we've all been sat at home during lockdown watching Netflix, creating a path, a way for people to escape through film and TV and music, whatever's been going on in this world. And I can't imagine having to do lockdown without TV or without film or without Spotify or without like, it would have been, I know people's mental health has been negatively affected, but it would have been like 100 times worse. So I think first of all, we have to realize that our job does have value, and there's, whilst of course being a key worker is a very valuable, we need doctors, we need nurses, we need dentists and teachers and everything else, we do need that kind of creative outlet, and people need space to just, even if it's just like, I want to watch Spider-Man for 90 minutes and forget about what's going on in the world. That's such an important place within society, and it's not something that we should give up on because we feel that our job isn't a proper job. And in terms of just having the resilience and the resolve to keep going throughout lockdown, I think that film luckily hasn't locked down right now, so there are lots of opportunities to get involved in lots of different film productions. I know it's hard. A lot of people, for example, have moved back home. I'm speaking as someone who lives in London, so I've got quite easy access to various studios around. And if you've moved back to somewhere in the countryside without proper links to wherever you want to get to, of course there's going to be additional barriers, but filming has opened up again. And I think we're going to see almost like a roaring 20s kind of thing, where people are probably going to go crazy, and there's going to be lots of partying and lots of events and lots of things going on, and I think film and TV and theatre will all come back in some form or other, even if it means to survive financially right now doing a slightly different job. Like, I also do videography, which is related but not the same. So I'll make corporate videos. For me, it's like finding how I can still keep honing my skills and using my skills as a filmmaker, but in a slightly different setting. For me, that's been quite useful. But again, I think everyone's on their own individual journey. For me, I think having a bit of a network around you of people that you can just be honest with. I think on social media, we always have to pretend that life's amazing, and I've not been rejected from anything, and I get every job I apply for. My career is amazing. Like, we're all in the same position pretty much. A lot of us aren't working. A lot of us haven't been able to write the script they wanted to write. So I think just being kind to yourself and accepting that this is a period in time that none of us have experienced before. And first of all, you need to look after yourself. And once you've looked after yourself, then you can be the artist that you want to be.
100%. That is incredible advice. And I would probably just add that if there are people out there, specifically people that want to do writing or directing, I would say you have that ambition for a reason. Hold on to that and value that. And unfortunately, the way the world works, and sometimes the way this industry can work, is a lot of people are going to tell you that this isn't for you. That they can say what they want and they can have their opinion, but the only person that can either deter you or spur you on ultimately is going to be yourself. So you have to hold on to that reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think if your decision's coming from something external to you, that's when you're like, maybe you're not making the right decision. But if it's like something inside of you, and you know that this is why I'm doing this, if it shifts, at least it's come from you. It's not come from because someone said that painting you did wasn't very good, or that film was terrible. Like, everyone's first film is terrible. It's going to be terrible. That's the point. That's why it should. You just keep building from there. It's not a reason to quit.
Definitely. I think the one thing that most people always say is that they don't want to regret the stuff that they didn't do. You know, you don't want to get to a certain stage in life and think, I've just played it safe and I really wanted to do this creative endeavor, but it was never the right time, or people always told me not to, or, you know, I wasn't able to do so for financial reasons. I think when you have a lack of resources, it forces you to be more creative and less precious about stuff. And that, in a way, can be less inhibiting and more fulfilling to do it that way. And I always think with being creative, start with something small and go from there. I love the Daniel Kaluuya quote, which he was quoting from somebody else, which is start small, start local, keep going. Really, really love that. And I think it's powerful, and I think it's true as well.
Yeah. I think sometimes I do this as well. I'll wait, and I'm like, I don't have the perfect camera that I want to shoot on. I don't have the perfect lighting, so I'm just not going to do it until all conditions are perfect. But it doesn't really make sense. It's like start where you are with what you have, and then build from there, I think. And people gravitate towards you if they see that you're making stuff that they like. You'll find your team, you'll find your tribe, as people say quite a lot. And those are the support networks that will keep you going when times get really tough.
Definitely. Also, when it comes to people that try and deter you, and I've had a lot of them throughout my life, throughout my career, when they see that you're not deterred, the conversation changes. The attitude changes swiftly.
Yeah.
Like years ago, if they would have said, "You want to do what? Nah, you shouldn't do that. It's not for you." Like, people like us don't really do that. Years later, you're still going and you're creating stuff that's good, or you're creating stuff that they even like. Suddenly they're like, oh, you stuck with it. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. They won't give you your credit. They won't go, "That's brilliant. I'm sorry for trying to stand in your way." They'll go, "Oh, okay, cool." You know, but, yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes they try. It's maybe not even always from a place of malice. They're just like, maybe that's not the most sensible decision, and they think they're being helpful. But yeah, it still could knock you back, and it can still can be a bit very disorientating when you're trying to navigate your way through a very confusing field in a way, because at school, or if you go to university or you do an apprenticeship or whatever, there's always like a clear set path. Like, this is a curriculum, this is how you get there. And then when you leave and you're trying to get into creative industry, unless you know someone, unless you have connections within your family who can sort of guide you, it can be very, very confusing to work out what you're meant to be doing. But I think a lot of depends on how old people are, but there's a lot of organizations as well. Sadly, quite a lot of things cut off at 26. That's what I found to be quite tough. Like when you pass 26 and you think, "Oh, I want to get into film," it feels like there's so many entry-level things that are just not available for some reason. But I think there's, even if you're not going for a young person's thing, there's lots of local networks and local groups and online networking and Zoom things, even whilst people aren't networking in person, that are still going on, that you can still get involved with.
Definitely. I mean, I also think, you mentioned about age, I also think that the older you get, the better you become as a storyteller.
Yeah.
I was awful as a younger guy. I enjoyed myself, and I think that the stories I told were cool at the time. I look back on it now and I just think I should have done more with my time. I should have been a bit more intelligent with it. I should have talked about stuff that had more of an impact. Do you know what I mean? And even when it comes to education, I hated history at school. I have much more for appreciation now, because I want to know how stories were told and how things happened and what the nuances of this character was. And do you know what I mean? And I look at it now, and now I watch documentaries on history and stuff, and I think, oh, you know, if I had that mentality of, this is a great story, what are the factors behind it, I would have enjoyed history more, and I would have probably enjoyed education more and embraced everything, rather than going, right, I want to be a filmmaker, I just want to do that. Part of being a filmmaker is knowing what makes a good story, and you can learn that from history, you can learn that from English, you can learn that from many different things. And I never fully embraced that while I was at school. So yes, it's thoughts that I've had afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, definitely with the age. I think there's just so I don't really understand the focus on. You can be an emerging filmmaker, and you can be a new filmmaker, and not be a young filmmaker. Like, but we use them as if they all need to be the same thing. And like, if you're, yeah, it also makes you feel old when you turn 26, which is weird as well. You're like, oh man, I haven't made it yet. I'm 26 years old. I don't have time, but like you do have quite a lot of time to find your voice and to find the stories that you want to tell. And yeah, there should definitely be a lot more support for like the 40-year-old first time filmmaker, or even older than that. Like 40 is not old either, but do you know what I mean? Like it's all cut off by that time for some reason. And you kind of then at that stage you need to find your path even more than when you're 21 and trying to find your path. So I think like having that discussion would, as an industry, would be very useful.
I definitely think so. And I think that, to be fair, I think it is a discussion that people are starting to have, because I think people are just like, you can't write people off after a certain age because it's convenient to do so, or you only want to concentrate on a certain group that fulfill a certain age. And like I said, everyone's got stories to tell.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would love to do, whether it's through this YouTube channel or the stuff that I make or the conversations that I have, is to empower people to know that your stories are important and you can tell them. You have the right to do so. And even if it's not in film and TV, you could get a camera and just tell your stories that way. Or as you say, get a team together and film it. And you keep doing that, and you grow from there. And if your stories are good, and if you've done it in a good way, and if you keep going, talent will always out. Like, there's always a space for stories. I don't think we're ever going to have enough stories. We're always going to want more.
Yeah. Yeah, they do say that there's no new story ideas. It's just like different ways of telling them and your perspective of telling it. So yeah, I feel like, imposter syndrome almost, of feeling like, oh, I don't know if my story matters, whereas it definitely does. And I guess you do meet people in life who are, I'm not going to say there's no such thing as a boring person, but that's my perspective. Like, I might not be interested in what someone has to say, but that doesn't mean someone else isn't interested in what they have to say. Like, you'll find your audience and you'll find the people. I don't know. I've watched really boring documentaries to fall asleep because I find it hard to sleep. So I find them, literally any topic you put into YouTube, someone's made something about it. There's someone somewhere who's into it, and with the internet, you can find an audience. I think I was reading about a documentary that was about Helvetica, the font, and it did like really well. Like, it's a short film, and they monetized it really, really well because it's just such a niche community, and people who like Helvetica really like it. So they'll pay £2 to watch this film about it. But honestly, I just can't think of anything that someone somewhere won't watch or won't be interested in.
Yeah, and as an audience, we want stories from everywhere. We want stories from everyone. And the more we can expand that out and the more we can encourage people, for me especially, from underrepresented backgrounds, to tell stories and to choose a path that is maybe a bit more unconventional, the better we will be in terms of creators, but also as audience. Because we're just expanding out the talent pool, which is really cool. Naomi, I just want to say thank you very much again for joining me on the channel. This has been a really great discussion. I think you've given out some incredible advice and encouragement. So I really, really appreciate you sharing your thoughts.
Cool, thanks for having me again.
You're very welcome. Guys, make sure you follow Naomi on Twitter and Instagram. I'll put the links in the description below. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, drop a like, comment down below. If there are any questions that you would like to ask Naomi, you can comment them down below, and then I can reach out to Naomi and comment below that with the answers. And yeah, subscribe to the channel. I've got loads more Trust the Process interviews and that with Nilan interviews to come. So subscribe to the channel so that as soon as they get uploaded, you'll be notified. So yeah, I will see you guys later.